Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Muschett, and today my guest, Justin Crockett Elzie, is joining me, and we are talking about the astrology forecast for November. Hi, Justin. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, Liz. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to talk with you about November.
I am too. Lots going on, that's for sure. So,
Yes.
Justin's an archetypal and Jyotish astrologer, teacher, author, and seer. You can reach Justin at his email, justin.elzie@gmail.com. I'm an astrologer, author, and intuitive, and you can find me on my website at alightpath.com. So we're in the month of November, and we have the water element for Scorpio. It's about water elements, about feelings and emotions. Scorpio is a fixed modality, staying steady and focused and finishing things up. The ruling planet is the modern is Pluto and the traditional is Mars. The mantra is I transform. Keywords or a keyword is regeneration and a caution is obsessive. And we have a photo by one of our viewers, Nora. So I want to thank Nora for contributing her photo today. So Justin, would you like to add some keywords or cautions to?
Yeah, I like the keyword of death. Um, Scorpio, as we know, rules the traditionally the eighth house in the astrology, which is sex, death, and transformation. And Scorpio energy can be very intense, as a water sign, very intense and passionate about things.
Thank you for adding that. So moving along. So Justin has come up for some favorable activities this month, and I'll let him share those.
Sure. Thank you, Liz. And so every month we like to talk about, we look at what lunar mansions that the sun is going through each month, gives us sort of an insight into what that energy is like for the month that the sun's going through these lunar mansions, or nashaktras is what we call them in Jyotish astrology. And it gives us some essence of some favorable activities that align with that energy. And so this month, the sun will be going through the nakshatra or lunar mansions of Swati, Vishakha, and Anuradha. Now, to give us some insight here, the deities that rule these are Vayu, which is the god of wind. So there's something there to do with communications. It's going to be kind of big this month. And we'll see that with Mercury when we start talking about the planets. And then Vishakha is ruled by Indra Agni, which is it's a diamorphic combination of Indra and Agni. So that's about conquering and making quick decisions and cutting things off. And then Anuradha is ruled by Mitra, which is the god of friendships. So it kind of highlights those some themes around there. But so this month is a good month for socializing and social activities, anything to do with business and trade and dealing with accounts and finance. But also because we're in that season of Scorpio, it's resolving things and reflecting, and with the planets going through Sagittarius, it's a good time to start a physical regimen. So if you want to start a yoga class or something of that sort, and then of course anytime with value is it's also because it's wind, and we got a lot of air stuff going on this month. Breathing exercises and meditation is important, and anything really requiring focus on goals right now, as well as we get down to the almost to the end of the year here. So that's some favorable activities. You have anything to add to that, Liz?
Well, I can't think of any right now, but maybe at the end I'll come up with some. But I wanted to thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
I appreciate that. So, looking at the chart for November 1st at 12 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time in Seattle, Washington, The moon is in Pisces, and it's in first quarter phase, a trine to the sun, and the sun is in Scorpio at 9 degrees. So they're almost at an exact trine. And then we have the ascendant at 11 degrees Leo and the midheaven at 25 degrees Aries. And today we kind of wanted to explore an overview for November. So we're going to use this chart and share the Sabian symbols.
I was going to ask you, because I know you've got a really good concepts around the different phases of the moon. So this one, as we're starting the month off, we've got this first quarter moon here that starts us off with the month, or this is maybe what the month is going to be like a little bit. So what is your thoughts about a first quarter moon?
Well, the first quarter, um, it's like a square in astrology, and there's usually some adjustments and changes that requires some work to accomplish. But this one's at 120 degrees, so that's a trine, because from 90 to 135 is that first quarter phase. So I would say that we've kind of had some ideas and been doing some work already, and now it's like we really know how to resolve any kind of issues that have come up with the trine in that first quarter. So it kind of makes the first quarter phase a little bit more run smoothly, I would say. Does that answer?
Yeah.
So we have some tools to work with, or, we've gathered the information that maybe we need to implement that change or adjustment.
Cool.
So the Sabian symbols were channeled in 1925 by spiritualist medium Elzie Wheeler. And she had use the assistance of Mark Edmund Jones, another astrologer. And they came up with 360 phrases that make up a symbolic image for each degree of the zodiac. And we're going to start with the ascendant, and we cover 3 Sabian symbols to tell a story. So we do the degree before as leading up to the degree that it's at is the now, and then the next degree is what's next. So Justin, do you want to start us off for the ascendant at 11 degrees Leo?
Sure. So we look at the ascendant as to how we're going to move forward throughout this month, and on the West Coast, of course, here, because it's the West Coast ascendant. And the Leo 10 degrees is early morning dew sparkles as sunlight floods the field. And the keynote here is it talks about the exalted feeling that rises from the soul of us as we've successfully passed through the long night and our strength and faith has been tested, and it's about we've come through and we're gone through a transfiguration.
Thank you. And the degree that it's in, Leo 11, children play on a swing hanging from the branches of a huge oak tree. And the keynote is power of tradition as it shelters the beginning of individual self-expression. And the key phrase is spontaneous activity of the innocent mind. Go ahead, Justin.
And the Leo 12 degrees, an evening party of adults on a lawn illuminated by fancy lanterns. And here we got talks about relaxation and escaping from work routine. And the key word there is sophistication.
So how would you sum the 3 Sabian symbols up for the ascendant?
Well, I would say because we know this is the ascendant on the West Coast, that the way we start to move forward into this month and how we tackle it is by realizing that we've come through some hard times, and it might be time to have a little fun this month.
I like that. That's great. Okay, so moving on to the midheaven, 25 degrees Aries. So the ascendant and the midheaven are both fire signs. So, there's some energy behind all this, I would say. So the degree leading up to is Aries 24, blown inward by the wind. The curtains of an open window take the shape of a cornucopia. And the keynote is openness to the influx of spiritual energies. and the key phrase is molded by transpersonal forces.
And then Aries 25, it talks about the possibility for humans to gain experience at two levels of being. And it's called the revelation of new potentialities. And it means the individual's on probation.
And then what's next is Aries 26, a man possessed of more gifts than he can hold. And the keynote is obsession by potentiality, and the key phrase is warning. Boy, that's interesting. So we have transpersonal, probation, and warning. So what would you sum those up as?
Well, so I'm glad you asked. So as we look forward, for those watching, we look at the midheaven as to what ultimately we want to try to accomplish this month and how we're moving forward through the month. This means that to be open to new ideas. We're going to be, but then we know we're going to also be, pushed around by, forces outside our control. But that there's a possibility that we could see a new perspective outside our own. So two levels of being, seeing new perspective on things, and that we are going to have a lot of options this month. We may be a little bit overwhelmed. So I think it's a little bit about being focused and listening to your inner voice. What do you think?
Well, I like that. And then I like how the first one talked about the wind, because when you talked about the nakshatras and for the month, you talked about wind, I believe.
Yes.
So here's another wind. And
Yeah.
we've got some wind here where I live, and I'm sure most of Washington State on the West Coast has. So, and then for the sun, we have 9 degrees Scorpio. So the degree leading up is Scorpio 8, a calm lake bathed in moonlight. And the keynote is a quiet openness to higher inspiration. And the key phrase is key essence. And I don't know if I said that right, but I tried.
That's fine. Scorpio 9 is a dentist at work, and it's the keynote here is overcoming the negative results of social practices of ego cravings. And so it points out some inventiveness in the personality.
And then next, Scorpio 10, a fellowship supper reunites old comrades. The overtones of human relationships based on a community of work or experiences. And the key phrase is comradeship. So, how would you sum these up, Justin?
Well, I think this kind of goes to what I was saying before with the Nishaktras. Mitra is the god of friendship, and this is socializing is one of the really favorable activities this month. Is socializing with others and social events. So I think this kind of speaks to, do that, but be very be very aware of negative emotions between relationships, which may come out this month, of course, because of Mercury and going back into Scorpio, and Mars and Scorpio going into Sag. So there could be some difficult emotions within relationships that may have to encounter this month, but get out there and socialize.
Well, and I would say that, taking some time to meditate or just have quiet time, and then like there's some work to be put in, but also that other people could join with you to help you achieve your goal. Perhaps it's maybe a little bigger than just one person can do.
Yep.
And then for the moon at 10 degrees Pisces, and I'll let you start, Justin.
Sure. So Pisces 9 is a jockey spurs his horse, intent on outdistancing his rivals. And so here we have the intense mobilization of energy and skill and the drive for success this month in any social performance affected by the competitive spirit. And of course, the key phrase is self-quickening. And this reminds me of Mars and Sagittarius, which is competitive this month.
And then Pisces 10, an aviator pursues his journey, flying through ground obscuring clouds. Keynote: man's ability to develop powers and skills which, by transcending natural limitations, allow him to operate in mental, spiritual realms. And the key phrase is mastery.
And then Pisces 11, men traveling a narrow path seeking illumination. And the keynote here is the capacity inherent in every individual to seek at whatever cost entrance to a transcendent realm of reality. And the key phrase here is walk on.
These are so interesting. So how would you sum this one up?
You know what? I'd be curious to what you think first on this one.
Well, the self-quickening reminds me of like that ideas could come quickly. So it's like really pay attention or make a note. And it's like you have more abilities than you personally can realize. And so listen to your gut instinct, listen to your intuition, listen to yourself, and be ready to move forward. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I would just add in, I think that, you mentioned before that, the one of the major key phrases for Scorpio is transformation. I transform. And I think that's what we see here in this Pisces 11, the capacity in every individual to seek at whatever cost entrance to a transcendent realm of reality. That's ultimately what we're trying to all accomplish is loving one another, learning to love one another, and connecting with spirit. And I think that this is a good time for us to work on spiritual things and to work on transforming certain things in our personality and our life.
Well, it's interesting, the sun and moon are in water signs, and the ascendant and the midheaven are in fire signs. And I don't remember what the phrase is, but when you go from fire to water or water to fire, that there's a phrase, and you told me it not too long ago. Do you remember what it is?
Yeah, it's from water signs into fire signs. It happens between well, it happens between water and fire signs. So it's Pisces to Aries, Cancer to Leo, and Scorpio to Sagittarius when a planet's going across from water to fire. It's called Gadanta, which is a spiritual knot. And we all know that when you mix water and fire, you get steam. So there's something really important about as we see, the sun going from Scorpio into Sagittarius, Mercury going from Scorpio into Sagittarius this month, Mars going from Scorpio to Sagittarius. All of them are going through this spiritual knot this month, which really um, pings us to pay attention to that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, thank you for sharing. I just couldn't remember what it was called. So we're going to move on to out-of-bound planets. An out-of-bound planet is when the declination exceeds 23 degrees and 27 minutes north or south. The moon will be out of bounds November 3rd through the 8th and the 17th through the 20th. Mercury will be out of bounds November 1st through the 11th. Mars from November 28th to January 4th of 2026. Vesta, an asteroid, from November 11th through December 19th. Hygeia has been out of bounds for a while from June 12th through February 17th of 2026. And Pluto is still out of bounds until the November 23rd, and Pluto went out of bounds August 29th. So we have a lot of planets that are out of bounds. They don't act under the bounds of the sun. They act on their own. So sometimes they can act like a little 2-year-old having a temper tantrum.
Exactly.
So, I would say that there'd be some um, situations where maybe people aren't acting exactly how they normally would act or what you would expect of them.
I would so agree with that, especially since we've got the moon, which is our emotions, and Mercury is our communications and thinking, and Mars is our action. Boy, everybody should just hold on.
Well, be patient with yourself and others, please. Okay, planets moving into new signs for the month of November. On the 4th, Mars moves into Sagittarius, Venus into Scorpio. Uranus re-enters Taurus because Uranus is retrograde. On the 16th, Vesta moves into Capricorn. On the 18th, Mercury is retrograde, backing into Scorpio. And on the 21st, the Sun moves into Sagittarius. And on the 30th, Venus moves into Sagittarius. Any other comments about the planets moving into new signs?
No, not right away, no.
And then planets stationing retrograde or direct in November. On the 9th, we have Mercury stationing retrograde. On the 11th, Jupiter stationing retrograde. On the 21st, Ceres and asteroid stations direct. On the 27th, Saturn moves direct. And on the 29th, Mercury stations direct.
So I do have something to say about that slide, if I may.
Sure.
One thing we haven't talked a lot about is Jupiter. Jupiter's in Cancer right now, and with Jupiter in Cancer, this highlights family themes, children themes, tribalism, food. This year with Jupiter in Cancer, we're apt to see a lot of things about families, which we are in the news, especially around families and children with immigration and that. And then, of course, children vaccines, and of course the big changes to our food. So this is all part of Jupiter, and it's going retrograde. So Jupiter in Cancer tends to be very emotional, and so it's going to go retrograde at this period. And I think that's. To me, that means that there'll be some analysis, and with some changes coming in our food system and with families. So that's just something to for people to kind of watch what's going on in those themes, because this is a time period where there's going to be some things maybe have changed, but then going back and reassessing things in those areas.
Thank you for adding that. So we're going to look from November 1st through the 5th, and I'll read off all the aspects that we're going to have, and then Justin will tell us what jumps out at him to focus on for the first 5 days. So on the 1st, Venus is opposite Chiron. The 2nd, Venus is square Jupiter. On the 3rd, Venus is quincunx Saturn, and Mars is trine Neptune. On the 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius and opposes Uranus. And on the 5th, we have the Taurus full moon. So what jumps out at you?
Well, it's the Mars, because I think, Mars trining Neptune is really an easy flow of people being aggressive in the collective, because Neptune's a collective planet. So this is, and Mars being in Scorpio, this can be an aggressiveness and passion and action within individuals in the collective. But then what happens, it moves into Sagittarius, which Mars in Sagittarius, in my experience, is competitive. It wants to explore. And right as it moves into Sagittarius, it automatically opposes Uranus, the planet of rebellion, revolution, and change. And whenever Mars aspects Uranus, this is a key indicator of risk and sudden changes. People usually, if they have these two things, let's say trined in their chart or conjunct, they'll tend to do things by the seat of their pants or on the spur of the moment. So this is the time to kind of watch those quick decisions. And I think it's going to be kind of important to watch what really happens on the date on the 4th when this happens, that people don't take any risks or right around that time. And I was just also going to say something else, Liz, that I thought, during this month, as we know later on, that Mars will conjunct Mercury, the planet of communications and travel, as it's going retrograde, that this would be a month that people should probably reassess their travel plans, especially, governments shut down, and we're already starting to see, air travel back up, and I think we may see even bigger things happen with that, with Mars and Mercury playing footsies this month. What do you think? What jumps out with you?
Well, the Mars thing, but also the Venus. So we have the personal planets. Venus on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is very active, making aspects to other planets. So Venus is, our desires and what we want to accomplish. And then Mars is how we go about accomplishing that. So this week, it's like we might get more in touch with what we really want. If we've been wobbling or trying to make a decision, we might get more in touch or make the decision with the Mars, shifting to that Mars. So that's what I have to say. Are you ready to go to the next one?
Sure, cool. I agree.
Okay, so we're going to look at the Taurus full moon on November 5th at 13 degrees Aries. No, I have this wrong. It's 13 degrees Taurus. Sorry, I did not change that. I changed the degrees, but not the sign. So the
It's
moon
okay.
aspects we have is the moon is sextile the north node, trine the south node, square Pallas Athena, semi-square Neptune, and quincunx Juno. So is there anything that jumps out at you? Because we will be coming back in a few days and having a more in-depth show on the Taurus full moon.
Well, I I really think, when we think about the opposition between those two signs, Scorpio and Taurus, which is what we're having here, the two luminaries opposing one another. Scorpio being the sign of death and grief and loss and letting go, versus Taurus, which is abundance and gain. This, I think, will be a theme a little bit this month with these two, with this moon here. And because at the same time it's quincunxing Juno, this could relate to what we need to let go of in relationships, and looking at abundance in our relationships. As I mentioned earlier, Mitra is one of the deities ruling the sun this month, which is about relationships and partnerships and friendships. So this is just something to think about, maybe what to let go of, and appreciation and abundance in our relationships this month.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and we'll be back talking about the Taurus full moon in a few days, so I hope you'll join us and watch that. So, we're gonna go from the November 6th through the 15th. We have Mars sextile Pluto, Venus quincunx Neptune, Venus enters Scorpio, Venus quincunx Uranus. On the 7th, Uranus enters Taurus, moving retrograde. Venus is square Pluto. On the 9th, Mercury stations retrograde. On the 11th, Jupiter stations retrograde. On the 12th, Mercury is conjunct Mars. That's an important one. And on the 15th, Sun is quincunx Chiron. So I'll let you start, Justin.
Well, you know what? I'm going to kind of go off script here a little bit. I'm going to jump to Venus, and say a couple of things about Venus here. So, um, Venus being our desires and affections through this whole period of change, and it's interesting that it's quincunxing Neptune, which quincunx can represent an imbalance in relationship, and Neptune representing the collective, and then it's quincunxing Uranus. So it's actually uh, forming a yod here, right? A finger of God with this quincunx. So it's almost like the collective's desires and affections, and Venus in Scorpio is about, again, transformation of and death of desires and affections that, maybe there's some resistance a little bit to reassessing our desires, reflecting on our desires and affections, and letting go of some things this month. So that's something for everybody to kind of think about. This is a good month to actually maybe focus a little bit more on reflecting what your desires are as you get down closer to the end of the year here, and be open to change. And I think this represents some imbalance between people and the collective, what people are wanting, that that there's not a consensus of what people desire right now in the collective, which is Neptune represents the collective and Uranus is about change. And so I think it's asking us to, as a collective, to revisit our desires and affections and what we desire in our collective.
Well, that's good information. And then, that um, Mercury conjunct Mars, this is the second one in a short period, and there's going to be a few more, which oftentimes Mars and Mercury will conjunct for a couple of days, be an orb with maybe for 5 days or a week, and then they move on. But we're having several of these Mercury Mars conjunctions, and Mercury in this one will be traveling retrograde. So be cautious how you communicate with others, because it's very possible to be angry or say something that's not very nice, and it's hard to always take back if you say something that's not very nice. So I would just caution people to kind of take a breath or count to 3 before you speak, perhaps. Do you wanna say
Yeah.
anything about that?
Well, I was going to also mention the Sun quincunx Chiron, and I think that kind of overlays on the concept you were just talking about, and speaking to others with kindness, because we see the Scorpio Sun here is in balance with the Chiron and Aries, and we know that when you start to mix again a water sign here with um, with a fire sign here, that there can be some really harsh communications there, and so it's really about valuing individuals and maybe again about transforming ourselves this month.
Exactly, and, back to that yod that Uranus and Neptune are pointing to Venus, it's, could be a change in, your desires or what you've always believed to be true, and now you have to come up with a new plan and f with that Neptune, a new vision.
Yeah,
And as we enter this period from the 6th to the 15th for 10 days, it's still continuing the Mars and Venus that we saw on the first 5 days of the month, and then it starts shifting with other planets. Anything
yeah.
else you'd like to say about this slide?
Yeah, I would say one other thing, because we know this is a busy slide. I was going to just say, add something on to the Mars and Mercury, that it's, since we know Sagittarius rules philosophy and belief systems, and Mars is direct here while Mercury is retrograding. This could represent also changing our perspective about certain things, our philosophy or perspective, and or revisiting some ideas that we have, how we're believing about something or thinking about something, and so it's a time to kind of reassess your thoughts with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to November 16th through the 21st. On the 16th, Sun is trine Jupiter. On the 17th, Mercury is sextile Pluto. On the 18th, Mercury retrograde re-enters Scorpio. On the 19th is the Scorpio new moon. Mercury is opposite Uranus and trine Neptune. On the 20th, Sun is conjunct Mercury. Uranus is sextile Neptune. And on the 21st, Sun is opposite Uranus, trine Neptune, and enters Sagittarius. Boy, this month it's like it's kind of starts out calm and then it like starts ramping up.
Yes, yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So, if I may, I'll just tell you, as you were going through here and listing all the things, and one thing that jumped out with me is the Mercury Uranus opposition. Uh, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but that Uranus is a higher vibration. It's a planet of communications as well, but a higher vibration of Mercury. And with these two opposing one another, these planets of communications, um, This is a really good indicator of channeling and really connecting with your higher self when Mercury connects. And so again, it's listening to your inner voice with that Mercury um, opposite Uranus. What do you think about some of these things?
Well, it's like in this time frame, Mercury is pretty active. So there's a lot of activation from Mercury, but Mercury is moving retrograde, and we have to remember that Mercury retrograde is a lot about reviewing and rewriting and rethinking everything pretty much. And also, this month, we had Mercury go retrograde on, I think it was the 9th or the 11th. I don't remember which one, but it's like when Mercury goes retrograde, there's the shadow phase that's about 2 to 2.5 weeks before Mercury goes retrograde. So since the last few days of October through the first part of December, we'll have, this review happening for Mercury and our plans and ideas. It's like if you've been working on writing a book, you might be rewriting some chapters, or if you how you communicate. Maybe you had a certain style and now you're learning a new way to do that. So, anything else you'd like to say about this time period?
Well, yeah, and I think it's important. We can't let go without mentioning that grand trine there between the Sun and Jupiter and Neptune, and of course Saturn and Moon are also involved there. Um, that there's going to be a easy flow of emotions right now within families, within the collective, and it's a really good time to ground your emotions at this particular time. And because Jupiter is about growth, this is a good time where we can focus on improving relationships in our family and our tribe. And so it's a good time to focus on how we're emotionally dealing with things in our families.
When it can be a good time to work on issues that arise that maybe, you need to seek out a counselor or a good friend or whatever it might be for you. Maybe you just need to write about it and start working on releasing that. But yes, a good time to get in touch with your emotions. I agree. Thanks.
And I was going to say one other thing about that Sun opposite Uranus, because this is going to trigger people to want to change something about themselves right around this period of time. We know that people are born with a Sun Uranus conjunction in their natal charts tend to have constant change in their life. They'll change their names, they'll change their look. But that the fact that it's opposite Uranus, and it's in a sign of transformation. Um, there's going to be a little bit. This is a good time to change something about yourself that you want to do. Again, with Mars and Sagittarius, might be a good time to start like I was saying before, an exercise regimen or something of that sort. But Uranus is going to kind of try to force us here, and it's in Taurus at that point, so that represents the body. So this could be a time when you transform, let go of something, and you think about gaining something.
Even a small adjustment or a small change, I think will bring great rewards.
Yep, I agree.
So here's the Scorpio new moon at 28 degrees and 12 minutes. And the aspects with the moon are it's conjunct Sun and Mercury, sextile Pluto, trine Jupiter and Saturn, Neptune and Ceres, that grand trine that Justin was talking about, and opposite Uranus, which he mentioned also. So any other ones that you want to talk about?
No, that's what I would just mention. Anything else that you think about this chart?
Well, I would just kind of say that with Mercury and the Sun and Moon all conjunct, um, it's an opportunity to improve communication on all levels in your life. So, okay, we're going to go to November 22nd through the 30th. On the 22nd, we have Mercury trine Saturn and Jupiter. On the 23rd, Sun sextile Pluto. On the 24th, Mercury is quincunx Chiron and conjunct Venus. On the 25th, Venus is quincunx Chiron. On the 26th, Venus is trine Jupiter and Saturn. On the 27th, Saturn stations direct. On the 29th, Mercury stations direct. Venus is opposite Uranus. And on the 30th, Venus is trine Neptune and enters Sagittarius. A lot happening at this period of time, too. What jumps
Yeah.
out at you, Justin?
Well, a couple things. The Venus trining Neptune, and then it enters Sagittarius. Um, Again, I would say for people, this is a good time to really pay attention to travel right now this month and what that looks like. Kind of keep your ears to the ground to what's happening with our travel, um, because I think, we could see maybe some changes right around Venus trining Neptune and then Venus entering Sagittarius. Our desires change around some travel or expansion and growth or exploring some things. The other thing that jumped out to me was I want to mention is the Saturn. I think this is really good. It's a positive thing as it starts to go direct, because this could mean that in areas where we've been wanting to accomplish something, but it's um, so wherever Pisces is in your natal chart could be an area that you've been trying to get something accomplished, but there's been kind of an obstacle to it that you may be able to have a breakthrough after Saturn goes direct. If you've been wanting to start something new, is Saturn will be going back into Aries soon, and so it's almost time to make a decision and get things going again and get them off the design table and out there with Saturn going direct.
Well, and I'll be happy when Saturn gets back into Aries because I've had muscle cramps mostly in my feet. So it's like I'll be super happy when it's back in Aries because I wasn't having them when it was in Aries.
Right.
Well, Justin, I want to thank you for joining me today and talking about this. So do you have any other takeaway for the month that you'd like to
Well,
share?
I'm going to go back to um, what I see with the Jyotish or the Hindu astrology or Vedic astrology, that the deities that are ruling those nakshatras for the sun and Mars and this month, and they seem to be very focused on change and letting things go. Scorpio is all about transformation, letting things go at this time, and also focusing on relationships, but that we can conquer any obstacles if we put our mind to it. So I think this, the energy of Scorpio versus Taurus is really about um, letting go of something so that you can gain something. And so, time to think about letting go of something this month.
Well, and I always like to remind people of when the planets are stationing direct or retrograde that it causes or doesn't cause, but it feels like that there's a little bit more tension, a little bit more happening. And so, to be calm and try to make adjustments and changes according to what's needed because sometimes it's well you have to change the time or the plan. It's like, well, we can't do it today, we have to do it tomorrow or next week. And so just to be gentle with yourself and others, that's what I'm going to say.
And I would say, we do that slide on favorable activities for a reason. And I would just encourage somebody to really say, I've been listening to this show, but I am going to do something different this month. I'm going to either start a new physical exercise regimen, or I'm going to transform something about myself this month. I'm going to lean into what those planets are helping us with and offering us, and do something with that.
That sounds like a good plan. I'm going to do extra self-care. How's that? That's my
Yes,
commitment.
I think that's a good thing.
Well, Justin, thank you for joining me today. I want to thank our audience that's joined us live today and those that come back and watch at a later date. We appreciate you. And Justin and I both have newsletters, YouTube channels, and we are both consulting astrologers. So if you'd like a consultation, you can contact either one of us, and we'd be happy to assist you with that. And Justin, I'll let you talk about your slide.
Yeah, so as Liz was saying, I do consultations, and either in person or via Zoom, especially for those who are not in the area. And I also write a weekly horoscope for the Port Townsend Leader newspaper here on the peninsula, Olympic Peninsula. And best way to get a hold of me is through my YouTube channel, and I look forward to engaging with people out there.
So is that newspaper online?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Good. I'm gonna go look at it. Thanks. Um, I always have upcoming shows each week. I produce 1 to 3 shows a week. Justin joins me on several, and then I have the Astrology Star Sisters that we do a number of shows. So there's a good archive now on my YouTube channel, and there's always upcoming shows. So please join us. Justin and I will be on Talk Cosmos on November 16th, talking about the Scorpio new moon. So you can join us on either one of our YouTube channels and watch that live or come back and watch it at a later time. And I want to thank our sponsor, Astro Peregrine Software, an astrology software for Mac and Windows. And you can find out more information on astroperegrine.com. And we're going to say goodbye for now, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, Justin. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
We'll see you.